The SAT reading section. For so many of us, it's the most dreaded part of the whole test, right? It feels like this impossible race against the clock, with these super dense passages and tricky questions. But what if I told you it's not really about speed reading? It's about being a smart strategist. Let's just, look at the numbers. First step, the hard truth. You get 65 minutes. That is it. Just a little over an hour to work your way through some pretty complex writing. And in that time, you've got to answer 52 different questions, all spread across 5 passages. If you do the math, that's roughly 75 seconds for each question. And that's not even counting the time it takes to actually read the things. So yeah, the pressure is definitely real. So, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you beat that clock? How do you take this thing that feels like a high-pressure sprint and turn it into a game you can actually win? Well, that's exactly what we're about to do. Let's build your game plan, piece by piece. Here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll get to know the battlefield, understand the test inside and out. Then, we'll zoom in on the one crucial skill you have to master. After that, I'll show you the winning strategy to manage your time. And finally, we'll learn how to spot those tricky answer traps the test makers love to set. All right, let's dive into part 1, know your battlefield. Because you can't win the game if you don't even know the rules, right? So here's the cool thing. Every SAT reading section follows a super predictable formula. You're always going to get one passage of literary fiction. You'll see 1 or 2 on social science and another 1 or 2 on natural science. You'll also have to tackle one historical document, often from something called the Great Global Conversation, and one set of paired passages where you have to compare 2 different texts. Just knowing this layout is your first big advantage. And remember, it's not just a wall of text. Especially in the science and social science passages, you'll often get graphics, charts, tables, maybe a graph. The questions are going to expect you to pull information from those visuals, not just understand the words on the page. Okay, let's move on to part 2 and talk about the core skill you need. And here's a little spoiler alert. It has very little to do with reading super fast. See, the SAT isn't really a reading comprehension test. It's more like an argument comprehension test. The skill it's actually measuring is called rhetorical reading. Think about it like this. You're not just reading for what the author is saying, but for how they're saying it. You're asking, why did they choose that specific word? Or what's the purpose of this paragraph in the bigger picture? That is rhetorical reading. And here is the most important thing I'm going to tell you. This is not some magic talent you're either born with or you're not. No way. It is a skill. It's something that you can learn, you can practice, and you can absolutely master. It just takes some focused work. Okay, so you know the test layout, you know the skill to focus on. Now for part 3, your winning strategy. This is where we get tactical. This is how you attack the test itself. This might be the single biggest piece of advice for this entire section, so let this really sink in. You do not have to read the passages in the order they give them to you. You are in total control of how you want to tackle this thing. So the standard approach, what most students do, is just start at passage 1 and plow right through to the end. But the strategic approach, it's about reordering the passages based on your personal strengths. You attack the passages you find easiest first. That way you're banking points right away and building up your confidence instead of getting stuck on your hardest passage right out of the gate. So what does that actually look like? Well, a student who loves science might start with the natural science passage, then do social science and save that 18th century fiction passage for the very end. But a humanities whiz, they might do the complete opposite, starting with fiction and leaving the dense science passage for last. The whole point is to find the order that plays to your strengths. All right, finally, let's zoom all the way in for part 4. You've read the passage strategically, and now you're looking at the answer choices. It's time to learn how to spot the traps. Here's a huge secret about the SAT. The correct answer is almost never just a direct quote from the passage. The test makers want to know if you can identify the idea, not just match the words. The right answer will always be supported by the text, but it's probably going to be paraphrased. And you know what? They use the same kinds of traps over and over. An answer might be way too extreme, using words like always or never. It might be half right, but also half wrong. Or maybe it's a statement that's true in real life, but it wasn't actually mentioned in the passage you just read. Once you know these categories, you can eliminate the wrong choices with so much more confidence. So, to put it really simply,
When you're looking at your choices, stop hunting for an exact word-for-word match. Instead, hunt for the paraphrase. Your job is to find the one choice that says the same core idea, just in different words.
Because at the end of the day, the SAT reading test isn't really a measure of how smart you are or how fast you read. It's a test of strategy, of preparation, and your ability to think like the people who made it. It's a game with very clear rules. And now that you know them, are you ready to play?